All right. Good day to all of you who are listening, viewing, watching on YouTube, wherever you might find yourself. We are a little squished today in the Mazda Miata on the way to Tone Town because we have someone very special with us today. Mr. Ron Manelli is with us today from RJM. Ron, how's it going?
It's going great. Good to see you guys.
Good to see you as well, Ron. So Ron, if you guys aren't aware, those of you watching and listening, this may be your first episode to Chairman of the Boards, because we talk about Ron and his company just about every episode, it would seem. Ron is the founder and owner, along with his wife Sherry, of RJM Music, and they make simply the best MIDI switchers and controllers on the market, and we talk about MIDI a lot here at Chairman of the Board. So we thought we'd get Ron on and try and find, the magic behind RJM and chat a little bit about it. So I don't know, Ron, maybe to start us off, why don't you tell us, something about yourself maybe we don't know, and maybe some of the backstory, how you got started with RJM.
And definitely what the J is in RJM.
That's the question.
My bet is Geronimo.
Yep. Ron
Geronimo. Not a G.
Right. Okay. Well, I'll try to give you the quick story here. We'll keep you on suspense on the J for a little bit here.
Okay.
Anyway, so I started, like many of us, just started playing guitar as a kid, and just got into the whole thing, but pretty quickly realized that I was into the electronic side as well, and so within just months of picking up a guitar, I also picked up a soldering iron and started, with whatever I could find at the time, just putting together pedals and all that. So that's always been kind of something in the background, and always been sort of a hobby thing. And then starting about, it's going like 20 years ago now, which is alarming to think about, that I actually decided to, make a business out of it, and just, saw a few spaces in the market that, looked like they needed to be filled. And started with that, and, kind of very slowly, very gradually, just kind of kept building up and, doing more and more crazy, elaborate things. And, here we are 20 years later, still cranking out the products and all that. And so basically, so I always, I'd gone to school for electrical engineering, computer science, all that stuff. And I worked in the telecom field prior to starting this, and it was so it made sense to I don't know, it's kind of all of my interests kind of combined together, or at least my main ones, to do something like this. And so at first we started with the basically just looking at guitar rigs, and it's like, hey, these guys have these big pedal boards, and then they might have this enormous amp foot switch next to it. And, the idea is, well, why have both of those things separate? And so that was the amp gizmo was the first product. And, just, tying those two together with MIDI so you can integrate that with the rest of your gear. And, MIDI had been around, a long time, even at that time, but there were very few solutions for such a thing. And so that was kind of the thing that got me started. And that was kind of where I learned everything. I had the background in some of this, and the rest I just kind of had to learn the hard way about, actually how to run the business and design metal boxes and, whatever other numerous things that needed to be done. And so, yes, in 2003, RJM Music was made official, and it's just my initials, just Ronald Joseph Manelli, if you must know.
Geronimo is not it. It was a good guess, though, Mason.
No,
that was a very good guess.
Well, or Jehoshaphat. I think I've pitched it to Ron as a name change option.
I'll if I need a rebranding or something, I'll do that. That's pretty cool.
And this is the original right here.
Actually, there was an earlier model than that. Those
the
are
blue
harder
one?
to come by, and they're what's that?
Is it the blue one?
See now, if you, it's there were only 125 made, so they're pretty rare beasts, and they're much uglier looking than the second version amp gizmo. That was definitely something that I yeah, you would be hard pressed to find one. Probably there aren't. There are way more of the second generation units out there than there are of the first generation. I see mini amp gizmos. I see. Yeah, it's got like huge buttons. That's
it's not
it. Bottom corner there.
This guy,
the one with the big buttons. That's
wow.
the guy. Yeah,
this is history right here.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Yep.
For anyone who this is
on YouTube, there it is.
Beautiful.
Yeah. So that was the very first thing.
No, you know, I think it's respectable for the era, you know.
Yeah, and it was just I had so much to learn at that point, as far as just, you know, especially with the mechanical and sort of just all the box. The circuit is one thing, but all the stuff you wrap around it is the thing that I had to kind of figure out as I went.
Can I ask you one question? This is taking a small step back, but it's something I'm very curious about as a business owner. And I know I get asked this every once in a while, like how you take the step from your in air quotes, your real job, which was in telecom, going into what can be looked on by some as like a hobby, or like, oh, isn't that nice? He's making guitar pedals now. Was it a scary step to go from a solid job and then taking the dive into a bit of the unknown with RJM? Like, will this company work? Will it be viable? All that type of stuff. Was that a pretty easy decision for you and I assume Sherry at the time, or was it terrifying like it was for me and you know, other people I know that are in my shoes as well?
Well, I was fortunate enough that I basically, the company that I was at, this was like, you know, 1999 just into 2000, and so I actually got some, you know, a good chunk of change out of that business with when all the stock market went crazy and all that stuff. And so that was kind of the catalyst. Said, okay, you know what, we got some, you know, money. This is the time to do it if we're ever going to do it, yep. You know. And I didn't really jump into it straight away. I did some other things as I was kind of figuring stuff out, but I did, you know, leave that job at one point, and then it's like, okay, now I got to figure out what I do when I grow up, and so it wasn't a typical story, because I had the boost there to get us off the launch pad, I guess, but it was still scary, and you know, and it's been a roller coaster ride, you know, all the time. Any small business owner, I'm sure, would say the same. It's like you know, it's always been a sort of a white knuckle ride, but here we are, and it's you know, yeah, 20 years since we incorporated, so it must have stuck somehow.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, no, that's
cool.
Great. I didn't realize it'd been 20 years. I feel like it's. I mean, I guess I've since I've been around you, you've always been around. When you first entered the market, Ron, what was the competition as far as like switchers in any capacity, whether it was just strictly rack or pedalboard related?
Yeah, the main stuff was, you know, and they're still around, is Voodoo Lab. You know, the GCX and the ground control were pretty much, you know, largely what the pros were using, and they had some, you know, other, you know, smaller switchers as well, and Access Electronics, Mario in Canada, he's another small shop guy that's just coming back now, after a hiatus, which is great to see him back. And he, what he was doing, you know, certainly we paid attention to that, and he was certainly, you know, competition. And really there wasn't much else. I mean, there was, like, I think Rocktron did a little bit, and you know, and so there were a few others, but you know, it wasn't a terribly crowded market. And so, you know, one of the reasons why I decided to do it is, like, you know, it seemed like there was a little room to get in there and really, you know, do something interesting, and, you know, have some space to grow in that.
Mm-hmm.
is that kind of why you were, because I mean, in my mind, if I'm thinking about starting a business in the music industry, I'm thinking overdrives, maybe some pedals, like pedal related products is kind of like the one that, you know, would first come to mind. Did you ever consider that? Or were you always wanting that more tech heavy MIDI chip related, you know, type of approach to getting into the market? And obviously you did some research and found your slot, but were you ever thinking pedals in the beginning?
You know, really, I didn't. I didn't. I started, as a kid, building pedals just for fun, and but I was always drawn more to the tech heavy stuff, as you say, the microprocessor based circuits, and it just felt like I could have more of a could be more stand out more easily, where it, and some days I wish I had gone, strictly into pedals, because it seems like, despite the fact that there are tons of pedal companies, and there are a lot of companies I've watched, grow from, one guy in a garage to, very successful. And so, in retrospect, maybe I should have, but, or at least branched out into that earlier. But no, at the beginning, it was all like, what, this is the kind of stuff that is where kind of my skills and, the market kind of meet in this sort of little more esoteric kind of techie space.
Very cool.
Well, we're glad that you're here, Ron, because there really, yes. I mean, you have products where there's really nothing else that does it, or if there is something, it's just not it's not even a comparable product in terms of its feature set or its portability and in size. It's glad you're here. We're glad you're here.
Well, absolutely.
Yeah,
it's sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I was just saying, it's so easy to sell y'all stuff just because of like you just start spilling out all the details, and then they ask about another switcher and you tell them like 2 features that it does, and they're like, oh, that's it? Oh, shoot. Okay, yeah, I'm definitely going with the RJM. Like, I had a guy yesterday, and I was just like, this is what it can do, and this is what else it can do. And he goes, oh my gosh. I was like, like it can do a lot of stuff, and they're brilliant. So I also, and
even if you talk about what, let's say like the PBC-10, which has a PBC-10 been out for 8-9-ish years? Is that about right?
Yeah. It's 8 years. It was 2015.
So 8 years on the PBC-10, and you look at what it could do when it first came out, which was a lot, and what you've added over the years, which is incredible. Like, it's a product that I know, similar to Brian, and talk to guys about setups a lot. What switcher should I get? And the PBC-10 or the PBC-6X or the Meg-X, whatever the controller is, it's basically what I tell people, kind of my tagline for RJM is, it's not, you don't need to ask yourself, can it do it? You need to ask yourself, how do I program it to do what I want it to do? And it's a lot less about the feature set and a lot more about, you just got to find the right page in the editor or on the unit itself. And then there you go. You can program it in and it can get the job done. And so I think, obviously all 3 of us on Chairman of the Boards are huge fans of RJM, and you're just our favorite for good reason. But it is cool to see how these products have also developed over the past years as well. Which kind of leads me to my next question. You came out with the amp gizmo to start. That was product number 1.
Mm-hmm.
2-part question. What was product number 2? Like, where did you kind of end up going from there? And was there kind of an artist along the way that started using your stuff, maybe the amp gizmo or the second product, where you're like, okay, RJM is relevant, it has a place, got to keep pushing forward? Kind of like, what was kind of the next step in this part of the journey?
Okay, yeah. So the amp gizmo, gets out there in the world, and basically I was just selling it on eBay, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, I get a message from Joe Don Rooney from Rascal Flatts, and like, hey, can you get me one of these things, like, real quick? We're just about to go out on the road, or something to that effect. And so he was the first one. And Dweezil Zappa was another early user, and the sort of the last of the ones I had from the first, goofy looking batch was Smashing Pumpkins took a bunch of them as well.
Wow.
And so it was just by virtue of the fact that it was just a really, we were just making it and no one else was at the time. I guess people just found us because we had the solution, and so that was a real boost for starters. But there was an interim product that's even rarer than the first amp gizmo. That was actually the second product, and that was called the Loop Gizmo, which literally only 40 of those made, and it was basically just a fancy true bypass strip. But that was just kind of an experimental thing, and did not last long. It was kind of a pain to make. Looked cool though. But then where things really started to happen was in 2007. The next product was the RG16, which basically was a rack unit. Oh yeah, there's the Loop Gizmo, and that has the cool blue finish. And that's if you can find one of those, that's super rare. Oh, look at that.
What's the back of it look like?
Looks like this, Brian. Hold on.
Nah, yeah, that's what I was looking for. So are they? Oh, okay. Oh, sweet.
Yeah, so it's just loop switchers, and then it had a couple tricks that it could do. Like you could have
loop order.
Certain loops only for you could have it have real rudimentary like channel switching on an amp tied to having like certain effects on for channel 1 and certain effects on for channel 2. And there was even this rotary switch on the back that would actually change where that channel loop was in relation to the other two loops. So it was, cool. Just kind of mostly me learning how to do some of this stuff. And so it was, short-lived, but an important step. But then, RG16, which took the Amp Gizmo's whole amp controlling thing that it did, and then added 8 switching loops to it, like all in one rack space. And so that was like that was kind of the real, an important step for sure. And one of the big things was showing it at NAMM, and Dave Friedman shows up and it's like, hey, and basically said, hey, I'm really interested in this. Can you how about I just send me a prototype and I can play with it? And anyway, so he was kind of an early advisor on that one, and gave me some good tweaks to kind of polish the product before it came out. And that by virtue of him being involved, that got me in front of a lot of bands, because he was starting to use that in rigs, and so that kind of was our probably the most important foot in the door to get us started. And kind of went from there. RG16 became Rack Gizmo, which in the second.
So this is the original
the
one
RG16. Here. Yeah, that's the original one. Yep. So yeah.
So 8 audio loops, 8 functions.
Yep. And still, I mean, yeah, it's still a lot of that still carries through. The Rack Gizmo was sort of the second generation of that, and then the Effect Gizmo basically did away with the amp control side mostly, and then just basically stuffed 12 loops into a rack space. And so those are all kind of the same generation product, and kind of for the same purpose. But that's the Effect Gizmo is still being made, and that still makes it into a lot of the big guys touring racks and all that. So it's still an important thing, and kind of the oldest product that's still in production and still out there in use.
Very cool. Obviously want to keep this chat going. I am just going to tell you guys though about a couple of our sponsors. The first one is the Guitar Sanctuary. This is where Brian Omilion himself is sitting right now in a nicely air-conditioned room, dual lock in the background. You've got it all happening there. That's just one room of the Guitar Sanctuary, though. I have to say that's not the whole sanctuary for guitars. There is many more rooms in the Guitar Sanctuary. Basically all of the brands that we chat about on this show, Vertex, RJM, Goodwood, and obviously many, many, many more, are actually found at the Guitar Sanctuary. So definitely a store, a shop on the line, in person. You can check it out in multiple ways, and a great sponsor of this show. Very thankful for them. And Brian as well, after you've bought your RJM controller at the Guitar Sanctuary, you can go to Brian, get him to set it up for you and put it on a rig. He does a ton of programming as well, and basically just brings this whole thing together. So incredible store to check out, theguitarsanctuary.com. Also want to let you guys know about Bestronix, or btpa.com. Any accessories you need for your board. If you have taken the advice of Mason, myself, or Brian and learned how to solder your own cables, as an example, you can buy all the cable, all the raw parts, the plugs, the dual lock and Velcro. You can buy all that from Bestronix, and you can get 10% off. I know that you like a discount, as do I. And as Mason likes to say, that is 90% away from free. So if you want to get 10% off, you can use the code DACHAIRS, DACHAIRS, at btpa.com. And I think you're going to be glad you did. So those are the
Brad
two sponsors.
Also is friends with Ron.
What's this? Oh,
Brad
yes, Brad's a great guy.
Yeah. We're also big fans of Brad.
They've done a lot of work for us, and just best cable builders out there.
There you go. Perfect.
Bam.
So that's it. Let's get back into it. Brian, do you have any burning questions for Ron to keep this thing moving along?
I actually have a question, and it's like a partial question, because Brian Meter and I up front were talking like this morning, and he's like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "Oh, we're doing a chat with Ron," and he even asked. He said he wants to know how your wife Sherry like got involved with it too. You know, did like, because you guys do it together and it's your family, and you know, I've talked to some of your family before. And is it something that's like that you guys kind of started together, or that you got, she came in to do, because she handles, I talk to her pretty often about ordering stuff, or, some questions she'll like ask Ron, or, email Ron real quick. So I guess I'm curious about that, like, because it's such a family business.
Yeah. For years it was literally just me, and then brought in one other guy to help doing some tech work. But at some point, it just got too much, and basically, instead of hiring someone outside to do it, Sherry just started helping out, and just kind of get dragged in more and more, just because we just needed more and more help. And so yeah, she tends to be the dealer contact, especially, and is involved in like ordering parts a lot, and is currently doing quite a job of reorganizing our very messy office. And she's trying to hold the place together, basically. And so she's been super helpful and amazingly tolerant of this whole thing, and never came up to me and said, "Hey, why don't you get a real job?" So,
yeah, good.
But it actually works out. And a lot of couples say, how can you guys stand to be around each other all this time? But fortunately, we still like each other, and and we actually make a pretty good team. We're kind of opposites in many ways, and so I go and develop stuff and hide from people, and she's the personable one that can go and talk to the dealers and the artists and whoever else might need talking to.
Yeah, I remember getting a phone call. I was working, and I didn't know who the number was at first, and I was like, and typically I won't answer if I don't know the number. And I was like, "Hello," and she's like, "Hey, this is Sherry." I was like, "Sherry," and she had said, and I was like, "Oh, hi." She goes, "Can you get on a Zoom? Ron and I want to talk to you about this new, product, the 6X that was going to be coming out." And yeah, I just remember I was just like, okay, so who should I? She's like, oh, I kind of handle, all the technical. So yeah, no, it's Brian has said, he goes, how did he rope her into doing it? And her loving it. I was like, hey, you just got, this. But yeah, I was always curious about that. But yeah, no, I'm also curious about, are there any, are there any products that you've come out with that you discontinued that you wish you could still keep like producing? Cause the Tone Saver for me, I remember you guys had the Tone Saver for a while and I love that one. So I'm curious, is there any that, you thought this is going to be money and then it just didn't, but you wish, it was still around?
Yeah. Nothing is, no changes are permanent. And so,
yeah.
Just certain products just, basically just kind of sort of had their lifespan, it's like, basically with very few exceptions, if we're not selling it, it's just because or if we're not making them, it's because, the sales on them are just down and it just wasn't really worth it. Some of the products, like it became like some parts became obsolete. And so they would have needed a redesign and all that. One thing I will say is that, because of the chip shortage that is still ongoing, like basically some of our bigger plans are kind of postponed. And so there's going to be, we've already had one small product come out this year, the multi-box, which is a MIDI through box and TRS MIDI interface. But there will be more small boxes coming this year. So it's a lot easier to get chips for these little things than it is to get big microprocessors and stuff for the big stuff. And so there will be some interesting stuff showing up this year. And like I said, if I think that there is basically if I think we can sell it in a reasonable quantity, it'll come back. And
nice.
And we do actually listen to customers a lot. And so the things that people are most clamoring for are more likely to come back in some form or another in the future.
Nice. I miss the mini mix.
Yeah.
I had to transition to the Rolls MX28, but
what was the mini mix? I know the line mixer, but was the mini mix predecessor?
Well, it was a line mixer. It was
okay. I think you guys are talking the same thing.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Well, just wait and see.
Okay, you're just dangling some carrots right now, Ron. You're just teasing us.
Yeah, we may have an answer for you. It's not quite
okay.
not ready to tease it, but not ready to talk about it. Let's say that.
Yep. Okay. I'll take
that.
Yeah,
if
exactly.
If it's going to be one that is going to be, is going to have foot switches, just make sure it's stereo in. The challenge with the ones that are out there now is that they're not stereo in.
Okay.
So
he listens to customers, though. I don't know if he listens to builders.
Just keep that in mind.
So yeah, I don't know.
That's cool. And so we had talked about all the way up until the rack gizmo, where I really became familiar with RJM, and where I think we had done a couple of builds with a rack gizmo way back when Goodwood started. But when the PBC-10 came out, in my mind, that was a massive shift, probably both in product offering. I mean, you'd already done pedalboard related rather than just rack related, but you'd done some pedalboard friendly products up until that point. But with the PBC-10, in my mind, you would be, if not the first, one of the very first people to take rack style control. And in my mind, I'm thinking really around the parallel options in loop 7 to 10. You were giving people rack style control and a pedalboard friendly product. Was that a product for you where you knew you were onto something incredible, or was it a bit of a risk in your mind still? Like in my mind, it's brilliant. But I know when you're the builder and you're backing it financially and all the hours that go into it, it might feel a bit different. But how did you feel about the PBC-10 when that came out?
Yeah, I mean, for years prior to that, I had thought about like, I really should do a pedal board based switcher, like a programmable one, a real one, not, like I said, the loop gizmo didn't really count, but, and I just kept, tossing around in my head. And basically what I consider are basically the masterminds, like the Mastermind GT and all these things, and including the PVC, are what I consider the sort of the second generation products, because they all kind of came out of the same work, and they share a lot of code and design. Anyway, so we had already had the Mastermind GT, which is the big MIDI controller out, and then basically after that, I finally said, you know what? I think we finally have the a sort of a strong enough base to build this pedalboard switcher around. I can use all the brains and all the MIDI stuff, and so it wouldn't be just a programmable switcher. It's actually a full blown MIDI controller that also has all this audio stuff. And you pretty much hit the nail on the head, where what the whole intent is like, okay, well, there are all these great effects coming out now, like the Strymons and the Eventides and all that are formerly things you'd only could get in a rack, and these really great digital effects. And so it's like, okay, let's continue that. Let's make a rack style system, but let's put it on a pedal board instead. Now that we've got the effects, here's the rest of it. Here's the switching, the MIDI control, the line mixer, the parallel. Let's do all that in one thing. And so it was in one of the places where I just said, I'm just going to do it the way I think it should be done, and hope that it works, and hope that people will actually want to buy it. And thankfully, here 8 years out, we're still selling it, and people like it, and it does the job. That was another one where some feedback was helpful. John Petrucci was a early user of the Mastermind GT, and we got to know his tech, Maddie, well. And there were I kind of was running the ideas by them. And, basically that was some of the, where some of the ideas came from, and just, some of the fine tuning of like, okay, if you guys were to do a pedal board, what would you need in that to be good enough for you to actually just use a pedal board. And now, John's still using the rack and, has a big, huge setup, but basically that was the intent of making sure it was of the same caliber.
Speaking of racks, so cool. Mason, you just did a video with Justin.
Yeah,
he had a GT22.
Yeah. He has a lot of our jam products now, and he actually had made the switch from the GCX based stuff. And when I was talking to him, we did an interview on Tuesday. He's just like, man, I really wish I had changed this years ago, because just like the interface, and the controller, and the ability to see, with different color codings and with digital displays for every foot switch, it just, like, the one thing I can say about your switcher, no matter, what people argue, there is nobody out there that I think has designed a better workflow for working musicians than our jam. And the editor is incredibly feature laden, and I just think that the attention to detail on every single aspect is just really, really just unparalleled. I think that there's often a conflation of web presence or popularity with the benefits or popularity of a product, and from the consumer standpoint, they can say, well, I see this every week because it's popular on the internet. Mm-hmm. That doesn't necessarily mean that it's bad or good. I just think that, once we get into the live music side, editing, putting on set lists and stuff like that, then all of a sudden everything else just disappears and you're left with RJM because there's nothing that can really do that, and it has the sophistication of that. And if you're a pro, like, this is what we see the pros using, and there's a reason for that. But before I go further into that, I actually want to mention two sponsors that make our podcast possible every single week. The first of which are our friends at Sweetwater, and in particular, the Sweetwater Gear Exchange, which I think is a lovely way that takes all of the best features and assets of a site like Reverb and combines it with sort of just the natural peer-to-peer element of something like a Craigslist. And it allows you to sell and buy used gear through the platform of Sweetwater. And the amazing thing about this particular platform, unlike Reverb and eBay and a lot of these other third-party sites that you can resell your gear on, is that if you decide to take your earnings and put them onto a Sweetwater gift card, you don't have to pay any seller fees. So if you're somebody like me who's routinely buying new things at Sweetwater, this is a great way to maintain the total amount of your profits and being able to reuse them on stuff that you actually want and you would already be buying anyway at Sweetwater. So I really like that added bonus about the Gear Exchange. I've used the Gear Exchange. I've bought and sold on the Gear Exchange, and I've been very, very happy with the process. And you have, of course, the protection of Sweetwater behind you on this. And I just can't find a better solution currently for buying and selling stuff. I just love everything about it. I highly recommend that you try it. You can create an account for free over on sweetwater.com/used and get to buying or selling your used gear. Sweetwater Gear Exchange. Check it out. And secondly, I want to talk about guitar strings. Now, if you're somebody like me, you have the most corrosive sweat of anybody that you know, and people often try to take their guitars away from you because they're concerned about the damage that you'll do to their newly strung guitars. And as a consequence to that, I've also struggled to find strings that can withstand my corrosive sweat. And I've tried everything. I've tried all different sorts of remedies. I've tried all different sorts of strings, and I've really only found a few options that work. But the one that I've actually been the happiest with are the ones from my friends over at Stringjoy. And Stringjoy is offering a coupon code for Chairman of the Board's listeners using the code BOARDS, BOARDS, not case sensitive, so you could do it lowercase, uppercase. You get 10% off your stringjoy.com order. So head over to stringjoy.com, use the coupon code BOARDS, you get 10% off. And I highly recommend that you check out their Orbiter strings. Those are their coated strings if you're somebody like me. I know that there's a lot of us out there. Otherwise, Elixir wouldn't exist. So I highly recommend you check them out. And also, they do a cool thing where you can do a subscription service, where if you're somebody like me who gets a subscription service for coffee, you get every week you get a new bag delivered. They have a similar system where you can set a threshold for delivery with Stringjoy. You can get a regular and routinely delivered packs of strings based on your normal usage. Another really cool thing that really nobody else out there is doing. So highly recommend you check out Stringjoy, stringjoy.com. Use the coupon code BOARDS. Get 10% off. Now, Ron, back to you. My question is, where do you feel, I know this is fast forwarding a little bit, where do you feel is the future of switchers going? Like, what are we going to start to see, you think, in the next 5 years in switchers, that features that are not currently available in them that will likely be available? And I'm not asking you to give any trade secrets away, but I'm sure you can sort of see which way sort of the tides are shifting in the technology in this sort of field on the back end. Where do you kind of see are some features that people might be able to look forward to in a general sense in the switcher world in the next 5 years?
Well, I mean, a lot of it, a lot of what you want in a switcher is to have, not much in the audio path. So, there's a limit to that in a way of, how much you want to put in. But there have been some good additions that, we did the line mixer and the parallel routing. Others have started adding in things for doing, sort of the trails or being sort of I guess you'd call like mini little mixer units that just go around a particular loop. And so just little additions like that of just adding some more, mixing and routing options within within the signal path. So that's probably the main stuff in there. I don't, I'm not yet sure that we're going to do, like I said, tons of things, where, still, simplicity is still pretty important, I think, in a switcher's audio path. And if you want to do crazy stuff, you do it outside of the switcher. At least that's my thought today. I may have a crazy idea tomorrow. I don't know. But, so that's, audio path is, going to go probably just that route, maybe a little fancier. I think the biggest thing that I'm watching right now and somewhat participating in is MIDI 2.0. And that's a big deal that the MIDI organization has been working on for a long time. MIDI's been around for, it's now 40 years.
Yeah.
Crazy.
And anyway, so it's about time that we kind of changed it and kind of brought it up to the a more modern spec. But what the nice thing is, all this work that's been going into it behind the scenes is eventually going to get out to the to end users. And what the nice thing is, it's going to be a lot more modern, where the way you'd kind of expect things with, say, like USB or something, where, you just plug it in and it just kind of works. And there's going to be a lot less configuration and a lot more plug and play. I think it's going to be a slow adoption. Manufacturers are not going to, it's going to be a lot of work. And it really kind of raises the bar for what the manufacturer has to do under the hood to make it work. But I think the end result is going to be worth it.
What will allow people to do that like current MIDI incarnations won't?
Well, I mean, there's actually many things that are different. Like a lot of it is, some of it, it's like higher resolution, where you can actually have better control over parameters, where before you've only had like 128 steps, which, from like, 0 volume to maximum, or, worse yet, if you're trying to control something that involves pitch or something, just having a few steps is not, a few steps of adjustment is not really that useful. And so, having a lot more, huge resolution makes it more possible to control things. Probably from the switcher aspect, the most important thing is this whole ability for the controller and the devices to communicate in both directions. And basically, the MIDI controller can just go and ask whatever's connected, like, hey, what's connected and what can you do? And like say you have a pedal connected, and it's like it can report back and say, hey, I've got a gain knob and a volume knob and a treble knob and a bass knob. And so these things all get, pulled into the controller instead of you like opening up a manual and like flipping through, and it's like, okay, well, the bass knob is controlled with CC number 36, and it'll remove a lot of those details. And so when this is fully implemented, and I have to stress this will take time, but certainly I intend to do as much of this as I can in our product. But when it is available, then basically it'll literally be just plug your stuff into the controller and probably hit a button to like have it scan everything, and it'll just kind of pull all the information in, and then you can start assigning specific parameters to buttons or expression pedals or whatever. And so it should be a lot more user friendly and just flow a lot lot than we can.
So no Bluetooth pedal boards. Cableless Bluetooth pedal boards.
My gosh.
Yeah. We don't want to. Yeah, that would be. I mean, you can do MIDI over Bluetooth quite nicely already. But yeah, I don't think we're going to do any wireless audio on our pedalboard.
The soldered cable lives on.
I actually do have a question. So with like that, the newer MIDI, would it be something to where, because like the biggest thing I see a lot of people have issues with is like, take like a Strymon Iridium, for instance, with that, like you have to go in to like, I still have to do it just because every single pedal is different. I go into the menial and I have to figure out which switches I'm holding, which knobs I'm turning, just to get the correct MIDI channel if they don't have a screen. So like with the newer MIDI, could the controller, like, could you say these 10 devices are MIDIs 1 through 10? Could it send out that MIDI command and make those pedals turn to those channels? Or is that more of like the pedal manufacturer would have to make something like, is that even capable? Like, could it self-program what channels are what?
That's a good question. I'd have to look at some of the specifics on that, but there's a lot of sysx stuff in there, and sysx is basically like it doesn't operate on channels. It's just kind of it's kind of, I don't know, sort of a whole different method of communication. But anyway, gotcha. Basically, I think you would be able to do it. I'd have to like actually go flip through some documentation. But that's a good point, because the less fiddling with the knobs and the parameters that the user has to do, the better, for sure. And so I would suspect that would be a possibility.
Okay, I was curious.
Yeah.
Actually, I do have another question. It's okay if I just...
Okay.
I've been very quiet this whole time because I've been trying to come up with some questions.
Let's go. You're on a roll.
I had someone actually ask me this the other day because they have a quad Cortex, and they're like, "Man, has RJM or has any of these companies seen these roller foot switch knobs where it's the knob and the foot switch in one?" And I was like, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if that's a thing. And he's like, yeah, I tried Googling it to use it, and I can't find it anywhere. It's like, it's not really technology. It's like, it's something that was designed. It's something like that, like something you could see in the future on products.
The pot foot switch?
The pot foot switch that, like, on the quad where you can on and off the foot switch or program it, but then it can also act as if like the knob, like obviously I'm not going to get an overdrive that has 18 foot switches instead of knobs. Like that would not look right. But I mean like a PVC controller, like having the foot switches like also acting as encoder knobs to like adjust volume or a volume of like the command or like BPMs. Like, is that kind of stuff that you could see in the future possibly doing because it's out there, or is that like still like so new you're not, I don't know. I had someone ask me that. I'm like, that's a really good point. I should probably ask them that.
Yeah, it's interesting. I do have a quad Cortex here, and it is pretty clever. It's definitely looks like it's, and I haven't actually like taken it apart, surprisingly. I take everything apart, but but it seems like it's an encoder, which is like one of the knobs that has a little click, detents, and it doesn't, and it goes, there isn't like it isn't like a normal pot where it has a beginning and an end. It just rotates. Anyway, so I could kind of see, you could kind of envision how they do it. I've never seen one, anywhere else. So I assume that it's something custom they did, but it seems, it could be done. I haven't, obviously haven't yet, done anything like that myself. And doing anything custom like that is a pricey thing, but it's an interesting idea. And I'm always for, new user interface ideas. And so I don't know, maybe one day, but for now, I think they're the only ones that do something like that I'm aware of, at least. Cool. And it is a pretty clever idea, I have to say.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, no, I was just curious about that. Well, before we continue, I do want to mention our last two amazing sponsors that make this show possible, as Mason has said. The first one would be Mono Creators. We all have a plethora of stuff that we carry, our gear, our boards, our bags, our backpacks, our laptops. Literally walked in this morning, I think, with like 3 mono bags between my guitars and my backpacks and my media backpack and my gear backpack. So, they just have so many great options of compact stuff, portable stuff, fly date stuff. And they have an amazing code of Chairmen, CHAIRMEN, for 10% off their website. So go and check them out and use them. High quality. The quality of the mono stuff has always been amazing, and they have great boards. I've done a lot of board builds on their angled stuff, so check them out. But the second one would be Creation Music Company. I could not do my job if I didn't at least have 3 to 5 orders coming in from Creation in a week, just because of how many cases or how many cabling orders that we do and stuff, and anchors and zip ties, everything. And they have a discount code of 15% off for Chairmen 15, CHAIRMEN 15 for 15% off. Does exclude a couple things, some of their custom stuff. But check them out. It does exclude their plugs because they're already at a discount, but they have amazing stuff, amazing boards, cases. So check them out. And I want to welcome our 5th chairman of the day, Oakley.
Oakley?
Hello.
I'm all out of questions. Number one baby in tone.
Yes.
That's right.
So do you on our way? If we're on our road to Tone Town, are we at a rest stop and you have him in like that, like that baby holster
baby
in the front? Yeah,
I think you'd look good in it, Mason. I think you would suit it. If you aren't already using it, I suggest it.
I'm definitely using it. I'll send you guys a photo next time.
Is it going to be like a mono creator?
There we go.
We on.
We need that, and I need to talk to Ron about the RJM PBC 3X for just Oakley when he's getting just a couple of pedals.
Yep.
Reorderable.
I have a question for you, Ron, which I think this could be a good avenue to answer it. If I was curious, the most common question you get from customers, and or the question that you wish, let's just say you answered it right here on the show and it never came up again. What's the question you wish people intuitively maybe understood or had an answer for that kind of comes up quite often?
Ooh, yeah, I do a lot of tech support, a lot of tech support. And so let's see, it could go 2 routes. It's either the rig debugging questions or the programming questions, and both have their definitely frequently asked questions. The programming one is one that probably comes up even more often, at least lately. But I don't know, that it would be hard to pin it down to one question. But I think if I could just like automatically brain dump everything, like my whole what I've got in my head about like the way what I had in mind when I designed this stuff, and like if I could get that mindset into someone's head, and that would be ideal. So there's just certain things of you can do a lot with all of our masterminds, and you can generally get it to do what you want it to do one way or another. But like kind of having that kind of fundamental, it's a complicated thing, and so you kind of need to have that understanding of how the pieces work together. And so I get questions about like why is it doing that? Well, it's because that's the way it's designed to do it, and this is why. And this is how you can change it, even though it's kind of, without getting too far into the details, it's all that kind of stuff of just kind of understanding how all the machinery, the virtual machinery works under the hood, and all that is, and so fortunately, a while back I did a bunch of videos on YouTube called Mastering the Mastermind. And that was kind of my attempt to do just that. Trying to it's a lot of video, it's a lot of time, apologies, but it's kind of what's necessary. It's broken up by topic though. You don't necessarily need to, see all of them, but it really, is helpful and helpful for me too, because I can, try to explain things once well, and then I can just point people at it. But that would be one of the better things, the more people understand that, the happier they are with the product. And then, then I can spend my time designing new stuff instead.
Love it. And I remember even like I'd been programming the PBC for quite a while when you came up with those videos, and I watched the videos and you going through it, and even watching like some of the basic stuff, I was like, oh, there's a better way to do that. Like it makes more sense after seeing you explain it kind of from beginning to end in the way that it was really intended to be used. But that being said, I think the other thing I love about the Mastermind and the editor is that there are multiple ways to achieve the same outcome. And you can kind of, figure, I know half my time when I'm trying to do something new or what's the best approach to this, I just update it on the PBC in the editor, hit upload to the PBC, try it. No, that wasn't quite right. Try something else, upload it, try it. And I'm just kind of going back and forth trying to figure out the best way to do something new. And, eventually we'll always get there. But it is really cool to get a little bit more into your head through those YouTube videos that you created. And it really does start to bring the whole system together into a cohesive unit. So yeah, for anyone that has or is thinking about getting an RJM, I would definitely recommend those videos because they are really helpful. Which I wanted to mention as well, because I know when I watch an interview like this, I always get a little bit skeptical. And so I wanted to say one of the people that are not sponsoring this episode is RJM. We literally got Ron on here just because we love RJM, we love the products, and wanted a bit more of the kind of behind the scenes look into your approach. And so that's something I wanted to mention, at least. If I was listening to this or consuming this episode, I would just be thinking, these guys are just crushing on this guy. He must be paying them for it. But we legitimately just love RJM and really love what you're doing. And I have to say, can't wait to see what the next couple of years hold when you aren't restricted by the chip shortage. I know for us that's been quite frustrating, and for you even more so, Ron. And so I can't wait to see the fully free unleashed RJM. Ron not Jehoshaphat. Was it, you said it was Geronimo.
Justice.
I'm really looking forward to seeing what you can do now, with the chip shortage hopefully soon behind us. I know it's a big question mark there, but it's going to be really
RJM
good
unabridged.
Exactly.
Yeah,
RJM gone wild.
The nice thing is I'm making good use of the time. I mean, literally there are chips that I ordered in 2020 that are just arriving this year.
Oh my gosh.
There are chips that I've been wanting to that I've ordered a while back that are not still not coming out, like not expected until 2024. And so I'm trying to make good use of it, though. You wouldn't believe the number of products I actually have in development right now. And probably most of them will see the light of the day. And so it'll be fun. 2024 should be pretty fun. This year will be a little rocky, but we have some stuff in the works that we can do, given the restrictions we have now. And I don't like to go too long without coming out with something new, because it's, well, not only is it just good for business, but it's just I just love designing this stuff, and so I've always got more ideas.
We need to get these chip manufacturers. You need to get them in order, man. I've never gone to a grocery store and not been able to find Tostitos or Frito-Lay, and here we are. Just Texas Instruments can't keep up.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's just I've tried to follow what's going on, and it's just like pretty much any global thing that's happened in the past 3 years, not just the pandemic, but like everything affects it in one way or another, because there's so many things that have to go into chip manufacturing. It's just been sort of a perfect storm of things that can go wrong with an industry. And so I know they're scrambling to get it all back, but it's amazing how long it's taking to get back to normal. It's like, definitely not this year. It's not it's not going to be okay this year. So we just have to keep doing what we can.
I mean, are we talking like, is it like analog devices, or is it TI, or is it just like every confluence?
Everyone seems to have their issues, but it's mostly microprocessors in general. Okay. Most, and I think it was largely like the chips that we use are also used a lot in the automotive industry, and
so it's priority. You were a low priority comparatively to like the Ford Bronco.
Should be the other way around.
We're kind of low on the totem pole. The nice thing is that they probably drop more on the factory floor than we use in a year. And so, we can get little dribs and drabs, but even that's hard to come by. We're getting enough to support our existing products and generally keep those flowing most of the time. But yeah, if anything for new products, it's just super difficult. I can, get a handful to do prototypes maybe. And, so we just keep doing what we can.
So to get your RGM switcher, I have 2 rigs, both the PBC 6X on them. I haven't been brave enough to go with a 10. Maybe one day when the 10X comes out.
I have the 10. That's great.
Although I never really reorder the pedals. I have to say, as cool of a feature as that is, I feel like I never reorder them.
And that's a funny thing. Going into it, it's like the PBC 6X came out because the PBC 10 was the first one, and then immediately when that one came out, Boss came out with their ES8, which had the ability to reorder loops. And it's like this was at the same NAMM show, and they're like, really? I mean, like Boss is going to do a switcher, and so immediately it was like, well, why doesn't yours reorder loops? And it's like, well, because I didn't think it was necessary. And B, I wasn't sure that it was going to sound okay. I mean, you have to add a lot of stuff into the signal path to have loop reordering. And, so, it just didn't happen. But over the subsequent years, people kept saying, we want loop reordering, we want a smaller switcher, and we want it cheaper. It's like, okay. So eventually, given enough years, that was the PVC 6X. And it's interesting to see how it all panned out because, it's still, very much, a sort of a marketing bullet point necessity to have it because, people are like, oh, what's wrong with you if you don't have it now? But there's not only, some users have made some really great use of that. And actually, it is an essential feature for some players now, which is interesting. So it isn't just bullet point, but also doing the stuff I needed to do to make that happen, to have that flexibility allowed us to do, a bunch of other things that, things that I hadn't even thought of, most notably like the ability that we have to take a stereo loop and to split it into 2 mono loops. Like that wouldn't be possible without that same, matrix switching that we have in there. And so that was cool. It's like a really useful thing.
Yeah.
And it was just sort of something that, wasn't planned at all when the PBC 6 was coming out. And then somewhere along the line, someone mentioned to me, hey, it'd be cool if you could do this. And it's like, thought about it. It's like, I can do that. And so, if you use mono pedals, you can just split those loops and get new loops for free just by using some different cables. So
it's literally
that'll work out.
It's literally one of my favorite features. I had a guy yesterday. He's like, I have this many pedals and this is my budget. I said, well, the PBC is definitely the go-to. And I said 3 mono loops, 4 stereo loops. And he goes, oh, that's not enough. And I went, but wait, there's more.
But wait.
And I told him about the stereo converting into mono. And he just goes, I can't wrap my head around that. And I was like, yeah, but it's freaking awesome. Like, it's amazing what it can do. So yeah, bravo to that.
Yeah, that's very
so
cool.
that was a nice unexpected thing, and it also allowed us to make it a much smaller product as well. Like this one little chip replaces, potentially 256 relays. So that's that made it pretty nice to. So yeah, had a lot of benefits in it, just in addition to being able to say you reorder loops.
Yeah.
Well, Ron, this has been awesome. Thank you so much for giving us some insight into RJM from 2003 all the way till now, and even into the future. I feel like you're a bit of a looking glass into the future, telling us what's coming with MIDI 2.0 and all that, which is fascinating. I think we might all be out of a job at that point if MIDI 2.0 is what you're saying. But it sounds really cool, and thanks again for your time today. Anything, I guess, any four of you guys, Oakley included, anything you guys wanted to finish up with, anything you wanted to say to finish up, Ron or Mason or Brian? Oakley? Yeah.
I know, he's got something to say.
I hear ya.
He's speaking the truth. No, I think I'm good. I think I've said all that I asked about. I'm excited for the future and the chip shortage to be over, and any new products to come out from y'all.
Yeah, just I think I've talked enough, but definitely keep watching. There's a lot of stuff in the works, and so just keep an eye out.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you, Ron, for all that you do. You are appreciated. We will continue to sing your praises. If you're interested in checking out more of what Ron has to offer, we will have his products and website listed in the description and show notes. We highly recommend, of course, as always, that you watch it on YouTube so you can get a more enriched experience, where we shared many of the products with which Ron has designed and still currently manufactures. The PBC 6X, again, is a staple for me. I have 2 different pedal boards, both with which use it. And Ron and Sherry are some of the coolest people in the biz and offer some of the best service in the biz. And I don't think you could do any better. So cheers to you, Ron. Oakley and I send you our best from Oakland, California.
Excellent. Well, thanks, guys. Always great working with you. And thanks for the support over the years. And this has been great.
Yeah.
Awesome. See you guys.
All right.
See ya. Have a good one.